Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Megan and today I'm going to give you guys a little mini book haul and talk about the books that I read in the month of January. I feel like I had a couple 5-star reads if I'm not mistaken, and I'm excited to talk about them. Okay, let's start with our mini book haul. I decided to get this was really on a whim. I've just heard good things about it. It's called The Screwtape Letters by CSW, and it's written from the perspective, I believe, of Satan to his nephew and kind of like the tactics of the enemy. I started the first chapter and so far it's pretty good. Next, I have The Partner Plot by Christina Forrest, and this is my book club pick for the month of February. And we read the first book in this series last year, and I think that was called The Neighbor Favor, which we all really liked. So the waiting on Libby was like 18 weeks, which is kind of long, and I don't know that I'll be able to get the audio or the physical the ebook before book club, so I ended up just picking this up. Next we have To Bleed a Crystal Bloom by Sarah A. Parker, and if you know anything about this author, she wrote When the Moon Hatched, so I really love that book, and I think the second book to that series is coming out in May, but I saw someone recommend it and I was like, oh, I really love When the Moon Hatched and that story, so I was like, oh, I need to go pick this up. And I can already tell this is gonna also be a series because it has a number 1 on it, so I don't know why I do these things to myself. Next, I saw this book all over TikTok, I'm not gonna lie, and I'm not really super into like historical romance, but this sounded really interesting. It's called The Everlasting by Alex E. Harrow, and I've heard of this author, never read one of her books before, but it's about a man who goes back in time to like a journalist to report on, I guess, this woman knight, and he ends up falling in love with her. And so I thought the premise was super cute, and yeah, I just thought it would be cute. Not typically a book I would go for, but I was convinced. Those are all the books that I got at Barnes & Noble. I'm looking forward to starting those. Now let's get into the books that I read in the month of January. So the first book of 2026 that I rated 5 stars was a book called Dustbound by Greenwich and Lennox. I think these are 2 different authors, or 2 authors for the same book. This is a part of, I think it's a trilogy, I'm not 100% sure, but it is Riftbound, Dustbound, and the 3rd book, Realmbound, is coming out, I think, in May. And Dustbound was, I think, a lot better than the first book, in my opinion. I feel like the first book kind of just like lays the groundwork, and Dustbound you really get the meat and potatoes of it. But this was a 5-star. This was a good time. I feel like I haven't read a fantasy book in a long time that gives me that feeling, and so this was just a good time. This is about a girl who is kind of taken captive by a different realm, and she starts to uncover lots of things about the home she was taken from. She kind of uncovers some truth about her homeland and herself, and there's a little bit of a love triangle, which I know a lot of people don't like that, but I kind of like it, to be honest. So would definitely suggest. The next book is Frida McFadden's The Intruder, and I think also is one of her new ones. This was very middle of the road for me. I gave it like a 3 stars. It wasn't really great, but I wasn't like blown away, and I don't know if I'm just getting used to her writing now, so I'm not really like enjoying it as much, but they're just so easy to read, and it's kind of a good palate cleanser, and it kind of just keeps you at the edge of your seat to figure out like, okay, what's gonna happen. So I feel like I'll probably always recommend Frida McFadden books, honestly. The next book on this list is Red Rising, which I had super high hopes for, and the physical book had been on my TBR for ever. And I've heard so many good things, obviously, so I was like going in with super high expectations, and basically I purchased the graphic audio on Everand. Not purchased, it comes with the monthly like subscription, and then later was told like I shouldn't have done that because the graphic audio isn't as good as like I guess the regular audio, because I felt like it kind of took me out of it. I was having a hard time getting into it. I don't know what it was about it. I would say about halfway is when it started to feel like it picked up more for me, and I don't think the story was boring at all. I do think it moves relatively quickly, but it is definitely giving like Hunger Games. I would say, dare I say, more intense than Hunger Games, though you're not necessarily having to kill everyone, but it is almost like creating a whole new society. And they took this man, Darrow, and basically made him like their mascot for basically taking down the elites, and he's basically having to climb his way to the top. Yeah, this story I thought was good once it got going, so I rated it 4 stars. I definitely want to read the second book to at least figure out if I'm gonna continue the series, because people keep saying like where it really gets good is the like second and third books, so I'll probably pick up the second book. The next book, the next 5-star read, actually is by the same authors that did Dustbound. So this is a completely separate series, but they kind of connect. So the book is called The Ascended by Greenwich and Lennox, and you kind of have to read Riftborn and Dustbound to understand the ending of The Ascended. And I definitely suggest reading it in that order if you want the same impact by the end of The Ascended. This book, again, really did something for me. I feel like I have not read a fantasy book that excited me as much as The Ascended. I honestly think The Ascended was even better than Dustbound. Like, dare I say 6-star read for me. I feel like it's been a long time, like I said, that I've had a fantasy book that has excited me this much. So I'm excited to continue to read the series and see where it goes. This book is about a girl who's taken forcibly from her homeland. Every year or every decade, the higher ups come into town and look for people who have secret powers. And you know, if you're living amongst one and don't report that this person has powers, you are going to die. So a lot of your neighbors will rat you out, and it's just something that most people who do have powers keep under wraps. They claim they won't kill you if you come forward, but yeah, this was, I feel like I can't say too much without giving stuff away, but this is basically the journey of her learning about her powers more. The elite, I guess you will get to choose from their options, and she is chosen by someone who doesn't really have interest in her, but he ends up training her and bringing out her strength, her power. And I actually think that her powers are so unique. I mean, I read a lot of fantasy. I don't think I've ever seen like powers like this before personally, and I really appreciated that. I really enjoyed that aspect of the story. She also has a twin brother who gets taken even though he doesn't have any powers. So this book like genuinely keeps you on the edge of your seat the whole time. I just want more people to read it so I can talk about it. So please let me influence you to pick up Riftborn and Dustbound and The Ascended. This story was genuinely so captivating to me. Okay, my book club pick for January? Was that January? Yes. Our book club pick for January was The Briar Club by Kate Quinn. And I did really like this. I'm not a huge historical fiction person, but I enjoyed this. I enjoyed learning. I always feel like I learn something new when I read historical fiction, and I love that. This was about women who are all living in this like boarding house, and they all come from different paths and walks of life, and you get to have a different point of view from each character, and you kind of dive in deeper. Like, you hear about them all when you're in the POV of one of them, and so you hear about them a little bit, but once you get into like their world and you know what's really going on with them, it's quite fascinating, honestly. There's just so many different things that impacted these women during that time, that I think it was the 1950s. You know, women couldn't have their own bank account. They were just encouraged to have as many babies as possible. There was no birth control. You know, these women weren't making a lot of money. It wasn't really encouraged to be single or have a boyfriend. Like, you were to get married and have babies, and that was kind of like the path to take. And so if you weren't on that path, you were in a sense kind of ostracized, I think. And I think it just gave a different slice, a different aspects of each woman and what they were going through during that time. And I loved it. I do think there were some slow moments and some slow points that I'm sure added to the story and the depth of each character, but I did feel like got a little slow. So yeah, I rated this like a 3.5, 3.75, and I still would definitely recommend if you're a historical fiction person. I love they had like recipes that they shared amongst each other in the book, and it actually gave recipes in the book that I thought were just so cute. I loved the community aspect of this book and women coming together and supporting each other. So yeah, I definitely would recommend if you enjoy historical fiction, or not, because I still feel like the story was really informative. So that wraps up my January reads. Let me know if you've read any of the books I mentioned, or if you're going to try them out or read them. Let me know what you've been reading down below. Thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.